There are moments in history where God's presence is most powerful precisely because it is not announced. No thunder, no fire from heaven, no prophet standing in the public square declaring judgment or promise. Instead, events unfold quietly, woven together through human decisions, political systems, hidden fears, and unseen courage. The book of Esther is one of those moments. God's name is never spoken in its pages, yet his hand moves through every scene. His will advances through banquets and sleepless nights, through beauty and terror, through silence and resolve. Esther's story invites us into a world where faith must operate without visible confirmation, where courage is not loud, and where obedience often means stepping forward without certainty of survival. Before we continue, take a gentle moment now to like this video and subscribe to Bible Scope. These reflections are created for those who want to sit quietly with Scripture, allowing its depth to unfold slowly and truthfully. The setting of Esther's story is the Persian Empire, vast and powerful, stretching across nations and peoples. Israel is no longer a kingdom. Many of God's people live scattered throughout foreign lands as a result of exile. They are allowed to exist, but they do not belong. Their identity is fragile, dependent on the goodwill of rulers who do not share their faith or values. This is the soil in which Esther's courage grows, not in freedom, but in vulnerability. The story opens in the palace of King Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes, a ruler defined by extravagance and absolute authority. His banquets last for months, displaying wealth beyond imagination. Gold vessels, rich fabrics, and flowing wine serve not only pleasure, but power. These feasts communicate dominance. They remind all who attend that the king's word is law, and his favor is survival. Queen Vashti's refusal to appear before the king marks the first quiet act of resistance in the story. She is commanded to display herself before the guests, and she refuses. Scripture does not describe her motives in detail, but her action has consequences. She is removed from her position, and the palace begins searching for a new queen. This moment is more than court drama. It creates a vacancy that will later become a doorway for deliverance. What appears as political reaction becomes divine preparation. Esther enters the story without announcement. She is a young Jewish woman living under the care of her cousin Mordecai. Her Hebrew name is Hadassah, but she is known publicly by her Persian name, Esther. Even her identity is layered, revealing the tension between belonging and concealment. Mordecai instructs her not to reveal her Jewish heritage. This is not cowardice, it is survival. In a foreign empire, visibility can be dangerous. When Esther is taken into the palace, Scripture emphasizes her favor. She pleases those who see her. She listens carefully. She follows guidance. She does not demand or resist. Yet beneath this quiet compliance is attentiveness. Esther observes. She learns. She understands the rhythms of power. Her ascent to queenship is not driven by ambition, but by circumstance shaped by providence. God's character is revealed here not as distant, but as attentive. He works through systems that seem indifferent to righteousness. He uses beauty, timing, and human structures without endorsing their corruption. Esther becomes queen not because the system is just, but because God can work even through flawed systems to protect his people. Mordecai's presence at the palace gate is another subtle thread. He overhears a plot against the king and reports it through Esther. The conspirators are executed, and the event is recorded in the royal chronicles. Nothing more is said. No reward is given. The moment passes. Yet this forgotten act will later become the hinge on which the entire story turns. God's providence often plants seeds long before their purpose becomes visible. The tension escalates with the rise of Haman, a powerful official who demands honor. Mordecai refuses to bow. His refusal is not arrogance, but conviction. He will not give ultimate honor to a man. This act of faith appears small, almost stubborn, yet exposes a deep truth about human pride. Haman's response is disproportionate. Instead of punishing Mordecai alone, he plots the destruction of an entire people. Here, The narrative confronts us with the terrifying reality of human evil. Haman's decree is legal, calculated, and complete. It is genocide justified by law. The king, detached and indulgent, approves it without reflection. This reveals something painful about humanity. Systems of power often enable cruelty when conscience is absent. Evil does not always roar. Sometimes it signs documents and celebrates with banquets. When Mordecai learns of the decree, he mourns openly. He tears his clothes and cries out. Esther hears of his distress, but does not yet know its cause. This distance between them reflects Esther's protected position. She is queen, but she is also isolated. When Mordecai sends word of the decree, Esther responds with fear. She reminds him that approaching the king without invitation means death. This is the central crisis of the story. Esther stands between safety and responsibility. She can remain silent and survive, or she can speak and possibly die. Mordecai's response is quiet but piercing. He does not command her. He does not manipulate her. He reminds her that deliverance will come from somewhere, but she and her household may not escape. Then he asks the question that echoes through history. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? This moment reveals the mystery of divine providence. God does not force Esther's hand. He places her at the intersection of opportunity and obedience. Human freedom and divine purpose meet here, not in certainty, but in trust that Esther's response marks her transformation. She does not rush. She calls for fasting. She invites others into shared dependence on God. Though God is not named, prayer is implied. This collective waiting is an act of faith. Esther prepares not only her strategy, but her spirit. When Esther approaches the king, the moment stretches with unbearable tension. The king extends the scepter. She lives. Courage does not eliminate fear. It moves forward in spite of it. Esther does not immediately reveal her request. Instead, she invites the king and Haman to a banquet, then another. Her restraint is intentional. She creates space. She allows God's timing to unfold. During this delay, the king cannot sleep. He orders the chronicles to be read. Mordecai's forgotten loyalty is remembered. Haman, arriving to request Mordecai's execution, is instead instructed to honor him publicly. This reversal is not coincidence. It is providence unfolding at its own pace. God humbles the proud and lifts the faithful, often without announcement. When Esther finally speaks, her words are measured and personal. She identifies herself with her people. She does not accuse immediately. She reveals vulnerability before exposing evil. The king's anger turns toward Haman. Justice follows swiftly. The decree cannot be revoked, but a counter-decree is issued. The Jewish people are allowed to defend themselves. Mourning turns to celebration. This deliverance reveals God's character as faithful even when unseen. He preserves his people not through spectacle, but through presence. Esther's courage is not loud heroism. It is obedience shaped by wisdom, patience, and trust. The story also reveals humanity's complexity. Esther is not flawless. She hesitates. She fears. Yet God works through her humanity, not in spite of it. Mordecai is not a preacher. He is a gatekeeper, yet his faith shapes history. The king is powerful, yet passive. Haman is brilliant, yet blind to his own downfall. Esther's story reminds us that faithfulness often looks like quiet endurance before it looks like action. God's providence does not always feel comforting in the moment. It often feels like waiting without answers. Yet when the pattern becomes visible, we see that nothing was wasted. As this reflection comes toward its close, take another moment to like this video and subscribe to Bible Scope. Your support helps create space for Scripture to be explored with patience and care. Esther's untold courage invites us to trust God in seasons where his voice feels silent. It challenges us to recognize that position, influence, and opportunity are not accidental. They are invitations. The question Esther faced is one we all face in different forms. Will we step forward when obedience carries risk, trusting that God's purpose is larger than our fear? In the end, Esther's story does not end with triumph alone. It ends with remembrance. The Feast of Purim is established so that future generations will remember how deliverance came through hidden means. It is a reminder that God's providence does not require visibility to be powerful. He is present in the palace and the gate, in courage and hesitation, in silence and action. And even when his name is not spoken, his faithfulness remains unmistakable.